Hey there, welcome to Snowpal Podcast. Today's podcast is going to be in the space of finance, and we're going to take two companies to talk a little bit about what they do and why I found them interesting the way they are priced currently in the market. The two companies are Datadog and CoreWeave. So if this might be something of interest, then keep listening or watching. But before we get started, a quick disclaimer: I'm not a financial advisor, and I don't claim to be one. Watch this purely for educational purposes. Now, with that out of the way, let's just go quickly look at that. I'm sharing something already in the background that you'll see. By way of introduction to these companies, if you do not already know these companies, they are two different companies, right? They have little nothing to do with each other. They're both incredibly good software companies. Datadog has been around for a long time, much longer time, I should say. CoreWeave went IPO, I believe, sometime early last year in March ish, 2025. So CoreWeave, the ticker symbol is CRWV, is a specialized cloud provider for GPU, for AI related software. That if you're building AI related software and you need that infrastructure, then that's one of the companies you want to look at. It's actually pretty cool. Maybe I'll do a different podcast soon enough about just going, looking, checking out their product offerings and whatnot. But if you are building AI related software, then you definitely want to be looking at CoreWeave and see what the value they provide. Datadog, on the other side, I mean, they are, again, like I said, they have nothing to do with each other. They're not competitors. They work. You could use them both at the same time, right? They're complementary. So Datadog is an observability platform, right? That's what it is, and it's a phenomenal product. Uh, there is other competing offerings like Dynatrace and New Relic, for instance. But Datadog is by far my favorite for a number of reasons, and I've not been shy about sharing them in the past. Right? It's just that I like the company, and every time we've gone to the AWS Summit, we know that they have a large presence there. So again, I'm not, I have nothing to do with them other than the fact that we do use Datadog at Snowpal. Now they are pricey, so you've got to figure out how to use them, and you got to be careful about those things. But they are a phenomenal observability platform. So that's just a brief introduction about those companies. The focus of this podcast, though, it's going to be on how they've been performing in the market. So let me actually perhaps just go. You know what? I'm going to, yeah, let's do this actually, right? The current price of Datadog, if you look at the current price today, it's $119.40 at the time of this recording. That's the share value of Datadog. CoreWeave is about $101, 101.49 as I'm looking at it right now. So that's where they are. In terms of the market cap of these companies, they are actually not too far apart if memory serves me right. CoreWeave is $50 billion. And let's look at Datadog. Datadog is $40 billion. Wow, I thought they were, yeah, they are similar, but Datadog is like 20% smaller than CoreWeave, which is, it's not surprising, even though Datadog has been around for a while. When did they go IPO? Man, yeah, in 2019. Yeah, that's about like what, close to coming up little bit more than 6 years now. So surely that's no reflection of the size of companies, but CoreWeave is in lock, stock, and barrel in the AI space, and we know the momentum that's there in that space. So it's not surprising that they've grown incredibly. So we look at the chart again, and I want to share a couple of things with you. Before we go there, really quick, if you're not using our APIs at this point, definitely check us out on AWS Marketplace. Or if you want to deploy our APIs in your own infrastructure, you can just buy a commercial license. A lot of them start at $5,000, so it's super affordable and a whole lot cheaper than you building your backend systems. Just integrate our APIs to reduce time to market, risk, cost, and just to be successful in general. Okay, that's the plug. Let's move on from there. Let me go to. Yep, actually. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at, let me move myself okay, out of the way here. Okay, hopefully that's big enough. I can make it bigger as well. Yep. Okay, so this chart here, and I put this together. This is for Datadog, right? That's for Datadog. So essentially, I plotted the price fluctuation, a daily price, the daily close price of Datadog in the last 12 months, right? So this is January 2026. So it's all the way from January 2025 to 2026. So the last 12 months. But rather than look at least initially look at the whole thing, let's look at the part that's very interesting to me. If you look at it starting, say, I want to say maybe this is, the date's a little bit hard to read here. Um, yeah, I mean, give or take from the beginning of November, right? From a little bit more than 2 months ago. You see this here. They've lost quite a bit of value in the last 2 months. So to be precise, let me pull this up really quickly. So I know I have my numbers are not totally off here. Um, so sometime, I think at the beginning of November, they were $157. Now they are like, actually, let's go even further. On November 11th, I think the intraday high was $200, which means they're $80 shy of that now. So they've lost 40% in the last 2 months. That's essentially what you're seeing here. They've lost 40. It's pretty much down days all the time. Uh, the numbers here, it basically tells you how the close percentages, right? They're not the actual value. I don't know if I said value earlier, but it's the change percentage. So if you see that, more of the days they've been down, and some of the days they've been down pretty big, like this one here, this one here, and then these ones here. So they've dropped about 40%, and just keep that in mind. And then the chart above here, this one shows the volume, right? The average volume for Datadog, I want to say it looks like it's about like 10 million-ish shares. And there are days where you see like about 80 million shares traded on. I think this is basically when they became part of the S&P. I think they were added to the S&P somewhere in the middle of last year, and I think that's where that spike was, the volume. Otherwise they had just about 10-15 million shares a day, give or take, from what I remember, or maybe even lesser than that as an average. Let's look at, yeah, and there are some days you can see that there's a little bit more volume, but otherwise it's consistently around here. Let me check Datadog average daily trading volume. Yeah, it says it's 3.5 to 6 million shares. So you can see that this number has been pretty insane, where it was really high on those days. So that's the trading volume. And now let's quickly look at CoreWeave. So if I go to CoreWeave, and if I just minimize this, in the last since they've gone IPO, right, last year, or let's look at just the last 12 months, give or take, because they went IPO in March. So we can't look at the last 12 months because they were not around 12 months ago, at least as a public company. So I think they went IPO at around $40, and now it's over $100 right now. So which means you can see that their growth has been quite phenomenal in the last 10 months or so. So what is it, like $60? So it's 150%, right? They've gone up 150% in the last 10 months or so. And it's one of the securities that you may want to look at if you are interested in high volatility securities, right? And especially if you're a day trader, it's a very interesting company, at least at this point of time, or since they've gone IPO, because there's a lot of action all the time. And then if you look at their volumes, let's look at the volume and come back for a second. I think their average volume for CoreWeave is probably daily trading. I think it says it's about 27 million compared to Datadog, which was like 3 million. So what is it, like 9 times, right? About 10 times essentially. So that's a huge difference right there. So there's a lot of trading that happens on an average, and then there are occasions where you see they've crossed well over 60 million, it's close to 80 million, 70 million, 60 million, and then even recently here. So they have a very healthy trading volume, no question about that. And then also, if you look at the actual activity in the last, I don't know, last, was it like maybe the last 3 months or so, if you see this, you see that more of the days, if I'm not wrong, they've generally been up, and then they're, it's like, even if you look at the numbers more carefully, the days that they have been up, 16.8%, 7.6%, 6.7, 11.7, 8.65, 7.47, 8.05, 22.64, 10.7 and 12.2, and today it's like over 7% up. And also on the negative side, you see that those are also big enough numbers: 7%, 16%, 10, 7, and so on. It's just that they've done well overall. There've probably been more up days, or the days that they've been up much higher, but you can see that it's very volatile, right? So if you are one of those traders or investors who does not like this level of volatility, then this is not the security that you want to perhaps trade or even invest in. Let's go back to Datadog and look at the numbers there. Let me erase this. Okay. And then okay. So let's look at the numbers. Yeah, this was this is when they had the high volume day, probably, or maybe not. Yeah, the 15%. I want to say that, if I'm not wrong, this is when they were added to the S&P. Sometime middle of last year, they went up 15%, and I think the price on that day, at least the intraday high, was $155, if I remember correctly. And then they dropped. There was 4 down days after that. But then also, there's been quite a bit of these big numbers, right? Change percentages: up 7%, 7%, 6%, and then down 6%, down 6%. I mean, of course, the numbers for CoreWeave are a whole lot higher. And here we see a 23% spike. Wow. That was in November. Maybe they had like an earnings release. Let's see. Datadog, when was the last earnings for Datadog? Yeah, I think on November 6th. So maybe that's probably what it was. Yeah, that is what it is, right? So they went up 23% the last time they reported earnings. That's quite incredible. I mean, it's not. I mean, what I mean by that is, you do see these numbers when companies report earnings, but it's quite a bit. So what were they at after they reported earnings? Let me quickly take a look at that. That was, when did I say the earnings was? November 6th. Oh yeah, that's probably when they hit the high. They were, just around there. They were close to the highest in the last 2020. They were close to the 52-week high, and that's around the time where they hit $200. So they had, I guess, their earnings report was well received by the market. But after that, you see that they've, I don't know what this number is. It's hard to tell. Let me go maybe to the actual. Yeah, I have to look this up. It's hard to tell what this down. It looks like it's probably like 12, maybe 15%, if not more, the down days. And then there's one more here, right? So they had a couple of big down days, but overall in the last 2 months, as we've seen here, they've been down most of the time. And I think since the beginning of the year, they're like minus 12% down, right? So it's, if you ask, I mean, their forward price earnings ratio is pretty high. It's like 60. I mean, it's considered high, when you compare to other companies, the tech companies like Meta, which has an incredibly low, beautiful number. But you take all of this with a grain of salt, because if you take another company, Palantir, their forward P ratios, I don't know what it is. Let me look at it now. It's going to be some insane number. Yeah, it's 245, right? So again, you've got to take all of these numbers with a grain of salt. It is different for different companies. And for CoreWeave, they're probably not even reporting profits. They're probably reinvesting their earnings, I have to assume, because their earnings per share, EPS, is like negative. Now, what I want to share quickly in this podcast was just 2 companies, right? We just took an example of Palantir really quickly. Otherwise, CoreWeave and Datadog, one an observability platform, and another one that's helps you with AI infrastructure. But to get to a chart like this, just to see what's been happening in the last so long, or to find 2 companies out of thousands of companies and see what action there has been in the market in terms of trading volumes, in terms of days that they've been down versus up and what's been going on. It's not an easy proposition today. I mean, there are a number of tools that help you do a number of different things. But if I want to get some of these answers that I quickly shared with you, it takes a fair bit of time and investment, and from a time standpoint, and time is money in life in general. And when it comes to the stock market, time in milliseconds or microseconds becomes a lot of money or a lot less money, as you probably know. So to find this takes a lot of time. So one of the reasons we are working on this fintech API is to make life easier for day traders and investors alike, so they can find the information that they're looking for in much quicker time, and two, have information be provided to them in much quicker time, even information that they're not necessarily looking for. Each of us slices and dices these things in different ways, and we think about it a certain way at Snowpal, from a financial standpoint. And now we're going to take our financial learnings in the last so many months to engineering learnings and implementation. So expect to see something from us very soon, sometime this year for sure. We're just trying to juggle a number of different things that we do as a startup. But before I end the podcast, if you have an interest in fintech and in software development, and you want to work with us in many different capacities, invest in us and help us build this in much quicker time, or become, have a skin in the game as far as our API, fintech API is concerned, or the fintech offering is concerned, don't hesitate to hit us up, and then we'll be able to share a bit more than I'm able to share, than we are able to share in a lot of these public videos. I think you'll be if you enjoy engineering, software engineering, and fintech and finance, you probably your eyes might most likely light up when we share our idea with you. And again, if you know us, we spend a little bit of time trying to find investment and investors. For this one, a bit more than others, because there's a lot of expense around exchanges and exchange fees. But if we don't find what we're looking for, the way we're looking for, at least the way we're looking for in the time period, it doesn't really matter a whole lot, because we go about building it anyways. That's how we've launched all of our other products. But if you want to be part of this success, then definitely do hit us up. So again, just to recap what we've shared here, just want to share the trading volume of a couple of different companies that we've been looking at on almost a regular weekly or daily basis, just to see how they've traded, where they're at. So Datadog, I think, is priced quite nicely, in my opinion, right? And again, like I've said before, this is certainly not financial advice, and any money you put in the market, you can lose some or all of it. So, just start paper trading and then see where you're at. But I've been, from a personal investment standpoint, I'm kind of curious to know more about Datadog, because I think they are priced as nicely as I've seen them in the last, I want to see, even a couple of years, right? Before I end the podcast, let me look at the price that they were at. Was it like in 3 years ago? A little bit more than 3 years ago, they were at $70. And I think in 2021 they were close to $200. So they've how far are they from the lowest? I know in the last, I don't know, in the last, I want to say since 2022. So they were at $72, and now they're $120. So yep, they're maybe about, was it like 60% up since the last 3 years, and again 40% down from the last 2 months, literally. So it's surely we have to see where the market goes this year, but this is a price where I'm starting to be interested in Datadog as somebody who's looking at it. Let's also look at CoreWeave quickly before we call this podcast done. Actually, why don't I even go change this to Seeking Alpha, so we can look at CoreWeave. So CoreWeave was it like the highest was the 52-week high was about $183 in June 2025. So they are $80 down from that point. $80 would be, was it like 40, 45, 47% down from their high. And then the recent peak was in October, end of October, $131. So they're $30 down from there. So another 25% down. And then they were $65, give or take, in the middle of this December, like a month ago. So they're up $35 from that point onward. So about 50% up. So I guess if we looked at Micron, which is an entirely different company, but I'm just curious because it looks like they're, I'm gonna add the symbol here for Micron, and we look at it from December. Let's look at the last 1 month. Yep, Micron's up 55% and CoreWeave's up 46%. Now, again, they are two different companies. Micron is, is an AI, tech company in the space of AI with memory, provide memory and storage and whatnot. They are different companies, but they happen to be in the same space, at least from an AI standpoint. And if you look at this chart, I randomly pulled this up, but if you look at this chart, it's actually quite interesting. Don't you think that they've traded fairly similarly? This is, if you, let me step out here. Is there a way I can zoom out? No, I think that is okay. It looks very similar, right? The chart seems to have moved very closely together, and I see a pattern here. Let's go 6 months and see. Yeah, no, 6 months they diverge, but the last 1 month I can see quite a bit of overlap there, and then last 5 days, yeah, oh my God, it's hard to argue that they're not trending similarly. So that's something to watch as well. Anyways, I think all that I want to cover in this podcast. Hopefully, you learned something that you did not already know. Talk to you soon. Have a wonderful long weekend. Bye bye.